Today, we'll have a look at the escalating tensions between the United States and China in 2025. We'll explore the latest developments in the trade war, the broader geopolitical strategy of the US, and what these moves mean for both nations and the global economy. This is a critical moment in international relations and could have a profound effect on future generations, not just in China and the USA, but around the world. Let's talk about it. 大家好，我是 Suran 在中国. Hey everyone, it's Suran in China. How are y'all doing today? I hope you're having a lovely day. I am, as always, having a great day over here in the People's Republic. And let me tell you, I just came back from a fantastic trip. There will be new videos available on my other channel, Sir Ant Travels, very soon. So make sure you go over there and check them out. The link is down in the description. But for now, let's take a look at today's topic. The current US-China relationship is marked by heightened friction, primarily driven by an intensified trade war. When President Trump returned to office in 2025, he initially signaled willingness to cooperate with Beijing on mutual interests. However, this rhetoric quickly gave way to action that mirrored and escalated policies from his first term. The U.S. has imposed tariffs on Chinese goods exceeding 100%, with some categories, like electric vehicles, facing even steeper duties. Now, China has responded in kind, matching U.S. tariffs with its own, creating a tit-for-tat economic standoff. This escalation has raised concerns about whether these trade disputes are a precursor to broader conflict, potentially even military confrontation. To understand this moment, we need to look at the historical context. During Trump's first administration, from 2017 to 2021, his approach to China followed a similar pattern. Early in his term, Trump adopted a diplomatic tone, culminating in a state visit to China in 2017, where he met with President Xi Jinping and announced a trade deal. That agreement, however, unraveled quickly, and tensions escalated in the latter half of his term. Issues like human rights concerns in Xinjiang, protests in Hong Kong, and militarization of the Asia-Pacific region, particularly around Taiwan, became flashpoints. The COVID-19 pandemic further strained relations, with Trump's rhetoric increasingly framing China as a threat to U.S. interests. China, 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 it's all about China. We've all heard that before. So this history reveals a pattern in Trump's foreign policy. Initial overtures of cooperation, followed by sharp reversals. We saw this not only with China, but also with Russia during his first term. Despite campaign promises to improve relations with Moscow, Trump's administration imposed severe sanctions and withdrew from key arms control agreements like the INF Treaty after his 2018 Helsinki meeting with Vladimir Putin. This bait-and-switch approach seems to define Trump's strategy, and it's playing out again with China in 2025. The trade war is central to this strategy. Tariffs are a hallmark of Trump's brand as a strongman leader who promises to fix the U.S. economy by confronting adversaries like China. He has framed these tariffs as a way to re-industrialize America, protect domestic industries, and reduce reliance on Chinese imports. Some reports suggest Trump has even proposed replacing the federal income tax with revenue from tariffs, a radical idea that underscores his commitment to this approach. However, the economic reality is far more complex. In 2024, the U.S. imported nearly $440 billion worth of goods from China, including critical components for smartphones, appliances, and supply chains. These imports are not easily replaced, and tariffs have driven up costs for American consumers and businesses. Even just 3 months into Trump's term, and the impact is already visible. Everyday goods are becoming more expensive, with some estimates suggesting that prices for consumer electronics could rise as much as 10 times if exemptions for certain products are lifted. For example, a smartphone that costs $800 today could jump to $8,000 under a full tariff regime. Meanwhile, inflation, high debt, and rising unemployment continue to squeeze American households. Studies from institutions like the Peterson Institute for International Economics indicate that tariffs could worsen these economic challenges, potentially pushing the U.S. towards a recession. This raises a critical question. If the trade war isn't delivering tangible benefits to ordinary Americans, why is the Trump administration doubling down? The answer lies in the broader U.S. imperial strategy, which transcends any single administration. The United States views China, alongside Russia and Iran, as the primary challenges to its global dominance. These three nations are developing sovereign economic systems and multilateral institutions that rival Western-led frameworks like the IMF and World Bank. China's Belt and Road Initiative, for instance, has attracted over 150 countries, offering infrastructure development and economic partnerships that wildly contrast with the U.S.'s often coercive approach. More than 120 countries now count China as their largest trading partner, a testament to its growing influence. This shift towards a multipolar world threatens the financial mechanisms that underpin U.S. hegemony, such as the dominance of the U.S. dollar in global trade. China's economic resilience is particularly concerning to U.S. elites. Unlike the U.S., which faces periodic economic crises, China has maintained steady growth, even during global downturns, like the 2008 financial crisis and the COVID-19 pandemic. Its focus on poverty alleviation, state-led infrastructure, and controlled market policies has allowed it to address domestic challenges while projecting power abroad. The Australian Strategic Policy Institute, despite its critical stance on China, acknowledges that China is poised to surpass the U.S. in key technological fields within the next decade. The Trump administration's response to this challenge is not just economic, but also military. Key figures in the administration, including Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth and Secretary of State Marco Rubio, have signaled a hardline stance. Hegseth, who has written extensively about containing China, has cited U.S. military simulations where China consistently outperforms the U.S. in war games. Leaked documents suggest that the U.S. is preparing for potential conflict, not only over Taiwan, but across the entire Asia Pacific. Early diplomatic moves, such as visits to Japan and the Philippines, indicate a strategy to encircle China militarily. Taiwan remains a particularly volatile issue. The U.S. has historically adhered to the One China policy, which acknowledges Beijing's claim over Taiwan while maintaining unofficial ties with Taipei. However, recent actions, such as Rubio's removal of the language opposing Taiwanese separatism, suggests a shift towards more explicit support for Taiwan's independence. This move risks provoking China, which views Taiwan as a core national interest and has vowed to respond forcefully to any perceived threats. Beyond Taiwan, the U.S. is escalating its rhetoric and actions across multiple fronts. Trump has extended sanctions on Russia and maintained arms support for Ukraine, despite campaign promises to de-escalate. Indirect talks with Iran, conducted through intermediaries, indicate ongoing tensions in the Middle East as well. This three-front strategy, targeting Russia, Iran, and China simultaneously, stretches U.S. resources and greatly risks overreach. As one analyst put it, the U.S. is acting like a dangerous paper tiger, capable of causing significant harm, but increasingly unable to dictate terms to its adversaries. China, for its part, is not standing still. While Trump imposes tariffs, President Xi Jinping has embarked on high-profile tours to countries like Malaysia and Vietnam, securing major trade deals and reinforcing China's role as a regional leader. ASEAN nations, which rely on China for economic development, have publicly affirmed their alignment with Beijing. China's imports of Russian and Iranian oil have surged, further solidifying ties with these U.S. adversaries. Domestically, China's state-controlled economy keeps consumer prices low. Eggs, for example, cost just 50 cents a dozen in China, compared to $12 a dozen in the United States, demonstrating a level of stability that contrasts sharply with America's economic woes. So, what can we expect moving forward? The Trump administration's policies are unlikely to pivot towards de-escalation. The composition of Trump's cabinet, filled with China hawks, and the broader consensus among U.S. elites point to continued aggression. However, Trump's approach is not without risks. His flip-flopping, promising cooperation only to escalate tensions, could undermine his credibility both domestically and internationally. If the economic fallout from tariffs triggers a recession, or if military posturing leads to miscalculations, the consequences could be very, very severe. Moreover, the global landscape is shifting. The majority of the world, particularly the global south, sees China's model of development as a viable alternative to US-led neoliberalism. Countries are increasingly choosing to align with China, not out of ideological affinity, but because it offers tangible benefits like infrastructure and trade without the strings attached by Western institutions. This trend is likely to accelerate as the U.S. doubles down on sanctions and tariffs, alienating even its closest allies. In conclusion, the U.S.-China tensions in 2025 are a manifestation of a deeper struggle over global dominance. The trade war, military encirclement, and diplomatic maneuvers are all part of the U.S. strategy to contain China's rise. But this approach is filled with contradictions. It risks hurting the U.S. economy, alienating allies, and escalating into a broader conflict. Meanwhile, China's resilience and strategic partnerships position it as a formidable counterweight. As we move through Trump's second term, the world will be watching closely to see whether these tensions lead to cooperation, stalemate, or something far more dangerous. As always, thank you so much for joining me today in my video. I hope you found this discussion interesting. Remember, if you did, please like and subscribe and share your thoughts in the comments below. But until next time, 再见.